right, let's talk a little bit about my song, Me and the Chemicals. This is the first song that's coming out on my album, Balancing Act EP2, that comes out February 16th. This is the first song from that record. The first EP came out in September, second one comes out in February. For those of you who might not know, if you play EP1 back to back with EP2 that's coming out, they make a complete concept album that talks about what it was like for me to be an attorney for abused kids and how that sort of affected me as a person, as a songwriter. So, Balancing Act EP1 starts off pretty light and fun with songs about being a musician, songs about falling in love, and then gradually transitions into songs about what it's like to be a brand new attorney, what it's like to get to know kids in the foster care system who live in that world, and then how that impacts your relationships with your friends and loved ones. The start of the second album is really where I wanted the angst and the anger to be at its peak. So the first album ends with this uncertainty, and I wanted the second album to come out and punch you in the face. And so I needed a song that would come out and punch people in the face. So I wrote Me and the Chemicals, which was about my frustration with the system that sort of governs abused children, specifically the court system. Now, how do you make an angry song? Well, you got to have angry vocals, and I'll cover vocals in another video. But the first thing I wanted to talk about was how to get big-sounding rock guitars, because big-sounding rock guitars are always cool, at least to me. So first things first, if I want big-sounding rock guitars, my number one go-to is I have a Gibson Les Paul 2002 Les Paul that I love. I usually run it through some Marshall amps or something like that. That's not really the point, though. The point is that was what I used for that song, but it's not the only thing you can use. You can use Telecasters and get big rock sounds. Just ask Jimmy Page. The way I like to really get it is dial in a good tone and then do a couple of tricks. So first things first, I want to play you guys just the intro to Me and the Chemicals. Break. So the main intro is that riff, that dun 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 dun. There's two guitars there. Guitar one, which is panned hard left, it's only in your left speaker, so if you've got headphones on, just listen to your left ear, is this one. So it's a very bright, not quite chimey, but a bright guitar part that's played on the top, or the basically it revolves around an open D chord. So it's not chunky at all. It's very almost country sounding. But in the right ear, there is another guitar that's doing something that's very similar. It's playing around the same riff idea, but it's in drop D, so its harmonic center is actually a full octave below the other guitar, and it's much more overdriven. I'm actually using a Marshall. Looks like I used a JCM 800 on that I cranked, is what that says. So I got a cranked JCM 800 in your right ear. Take a listen to that. So a similar but pretty different sounding guitar part. It's chunkier, it's lower, it's got more drive to it. When you play them together, take a listen to the effect. There we go. Pretty chunky and pretty big, but I wanted it to sound a little bigger. Remember, this is supposed to be the angry song from the record, so I needed those guitars to be big. One way you can do that is you could track a bunch of guitars. You could layer 4, 5, 6 guitars and make it sound really big and full. The problem with doing that is that the more you add, the less space you have for the vocal, and the song is nothing without the vocal. So I didn't want to just track 10 guitars, because then where does the vocal sit in the mix? So what I did is a reverb trick, which is not something I came up with. I stole this from lots of great producers. It is a trick where instead of putting the reverb directly on the track, which I try not to do whenever I can, I actually put it on its own track. And so the guitar that is in your left ear, the reverb is on a different track, and that track is panned to the right, so that when they are played together, you get this effect. So the reverb's over in the right. Okay? And if I add the other guitars, Very subtle, but I think very effective. Let's listen to it without the reverb. Now I'm going to add it. You see how the reverb creates a sense of space? It's making it sound like the guitars are wider than they really are. And that's what I really wanted, was for those guitars to be super wide so that they were out of the way of the vocal. So if I play the intro with everything else brought up to level, you'll hear how those guitars actually are big and present, but not in front of the vocal. Check it out.
Out past the breakers where the waves grow so, the less air in your lungs, the farther the fall. Lightning strikes like a bench quickening. Like Vinny Van Gogh, you know I'm only half listening. When the day grows dark and the warden comes to play.
Now right there, another way to get a big guitar sound is to change the parts up a little bit. So in the first half of the verse, you can see, as I zoom in on these two guitar parts, that they are actually pretty similar, right? Like they're both playing those short phrases. But when you get to the middle of the verse, the guitar in your right ear starts just chugging power chords. Check that out.
Like a bench quickening.
Here it comes.
Like Vinny Van Gogh, you know
Listen to that right ear. Chugging, just...
When the day grows dark and the warden comes to play, with my mind and make a gloom in the grave. Matter or not, my mind is flayed. Like a broken siren knows what's coming my way. And brace yourself, the storm has...
And there we go. That's one trick. You know, those guitars basically run through the entire song, playing off of each other, not always, never playing the exact same thing, sometimes being close, sometimes being pretty different. But yeah, that's my quick tip on big rock guitars. Put one in the right ear, one in the left ear, swap the reverbs to the other side, and just make sure you have good guitar parts. Anyway, Zach Sloan, you can find me at ZachSloan.com, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.